I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, Highlandtown to be exact, not far away from the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which spanned across the Patapsco River at 1.6 miles in length. Opening on March 23, 1977, when I was almost 4 years old, it was factored into the 695 highway route which connected the Dundalk and Sparrows Point area to the Hawkins Point area. A dream for motorists who were constantly facing traffic jams in the other local tunnels. Mostly called the Key Bridge, it served an estimated 11.5 million cars annually and roughly 11,000 commuters per day. It was named after Francis Scott Key, who had written the Star-Spangled Banner only about 100 yards away at Fort McHenry. Its main span of 1,200 feet was the third longest of any continuous truss in the world. That is until the morning of March 26, 2024, at 1:30 a.m., when a full-sized cargo ship, the motor vessel Dally, leaving the port of Baltimore, lost power and drifted into one of the support pillars, causing the entire structure to collapse into the river. Fortune would have it this tragedy took place when it did, and not during rush hour traffic, as the loss of life would have been unimaginable. After personnel on the ship alerted the Maryland Department of Transportation that they lost control of the vessel, local authorities were able to close the bridge only moments before it was struck. Unfortunately, there was a small construction crew of 8 workers on the bridge when it crumpled. 2 survived, and the other 6 perished. I'm doing this little essay because of the impact the bridge has had on our city, as well as the impact it has had on myself as someone who used to travel across it back and forth over several decades. I used to drive to my then job near the airport in the mid to late 2000s. I would drive over it with my family to go down to the local casino. I would drive over it to band practice down in Pasadena during my guitar playing days. The bridge, while a simple connector from one side of the river to the other, was more than just that. It was a beautiful landmark that is sorely missed by the locals, like myself, who experienced many travels over it. Seeing it from different angles over the horizon from different highways was always pleasant. And now the sight from those areas is nothingness. Vacant air. So I work in the shipping industry for a licensed Baltimore freight forwarder. The bridge collapsing, and as it was, being located just outside the perimeter of the Port of Baltimore, has not only affected the economy of our state, but caused a ripple effect which has affected much of the East Coast in terms of import and export procedures. Many ships inbound from other countries had to be diverted to Norfolk, Philadelphia, and New York, causing those ports to take on more than usual. Truckers have been affected in that they were getting overwhelmed with jobs to move Baltimore containers out of the port and to either one of these other mentioned ports for export. Now, I personally had a container shipment through ACL, Atlantic Container Line, which had just arrived at Seagirt Marine Terminal in Baltimore the day before the bridge collapsed. The ship it was booked on was not due in for another 4 days. I had to find a trucker who was able to take it back out and move it up to New York, where ACL had rebooked it for export. And yes, the carriers and the terminals still made their money, like with gate fees, on pulling the container out of the stack and releasing it back to the trucker. One thing I want to touch upon are the conspiracy theories that came about on the day of the event and in the days after it. A Facebook friend had spent the entire first day going on about how the vessel is foreign, the crew is foreign, and the captain is foreign. So it was obviously an act of terrorism. They proceeded to go on that the ship was purposely aimed at the support pillar. Now, I normally keep my mouth shut and let people vent out their thoughts on social media, but being in the shipping industry where I know these acts of God can happen, well, I took offense and went back attacking their argument to the point of being unfriended. Now, I suppose they didn't like being accused of xenophobia, for starters. If they can't take a joke, right? I must have been really sleeping heavy that night, being only 2 miles from the bridge. The next morning, I seemed to have been the only one in Dundalk who did not hear the collision and collapse. From what I was told, it sounded like loud rolls of thunder. In some conversations I've had with people, as well as things I've heard on social media, The collapse of the bridge has put a phobia into the minds of many motorists that bridges are just altogether unsafe to drive across. Our Chesapeake Bay Bridge, or Bay Bridge, is a little over 4 miles long, and in my opinion, a pretty scary bridge to drive on. And one only thinks of the opening scene of Final Destination 5. And I doubt I could ever watch that movie again. The cleanup effort has surpassed expectations, as within 1 month from the tragedy, they have opened up a few channels to allow ships to pass in and out again. There had been a few cargo ships still trapped within the Port of Baltimore, and they are now on the move, getting out to start their journeys. The cleanup of debris will continue as long as it takes to completely clear out. It is uncertain how long it will take to rebuild the bridge. The omission of the structure has surely affected traffic, so the sooner rebuilding can begin, the better. And I personally would like to see it rebuilt exactly as it was before. Thank you for watching my video on the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And don't forget to subscribe for more great videos.